My brother, Dr. Michael J. Levin, is the world expert on running country censuses. So you're the world expert on doing censuses. How did that come to be?
Well, if you do one after another, eventually it starts adding up.
How many countries have you been to?
I've been in about 25 in Africa. I've been in almost every country in the Pacific, and then maybe 5 in Asia. I've done about 80 censuses. I counted it up about a year ago. I've done a few since, but I think it's about 80 over the last 50 years. This canoe is from the Solomon Islands, and I worked in the Solomon Islands on the several censuses, but the last one was the 2019 census. In the late 1990s, the UN asked me to write a book on editing census data. They had books on other aspects of census work, on fertility and mortality analysis, on the general beginning to end of censuses, the geography, and so forth. They didn't have anything on editing or tabulation, and they asked me to write. And at the time, I was at the Census Bureau. This one is a Nuku'oro man. Now, you probably wonder, what's a Nuku'oro man? There's an island called Nuku'oro, which is a Polynesian outlier in Micronesia. And this is a special statue, wooden statue carving, that they make. And so when you see that, you know it's a Nuku'oro man. And if I had taken money from them to do the writing, I would have had to turn it into the government because it was in my area of what I do normally. So I kept turning them down, and then they kept insisting. So finally, they said what they wanted to do was have me write the book, just do it evenings and weekends, and then we would have a meeting in New York at the UN with 25 experts from around the world, and we would go through the whole book, and that was fantastic. It really improved the quality. In life, you have to be willing to accept comments and adapt, and that's what I did. I think it turned out very nicely. This one actually is from Mexico, and I've had it for, when did I go there? About 1966. So I've had it for almost 60 years. This one is from Bali in Indonesia, and I got it when I was working on the Indonesia census. I did 2 in Indonesia, the 1980 census and the 2010 census. So there was 30 years in between. So I told them I'm going to come every 30 years and to expect me in 2040 to come back. I don't think they believe it. So that was the 2000 UN editing handbook. And then when it got to be 2010, they asked me to do it again because things had changed. In 2000, people were still keying, and it took a long time to do all that. And then by 2010, they were scanning, so the enumerators would fill in the circles, and then it would be red. So it wasn't as complicated it didn't take as long as keying it. You didn't need the same skills. The tapa on the wall, I had a Samoan friend, and I was visiting them and telling them about the problem, and he said, well, we have a tapa that's worth a lot of money if you want to get that. And the thing about it is, so you can take a picture of it later, but you'll see that there are 2 lines of words, and those are the ancestors. And most recent ancestors, they were people who were alive recently. And so it's worth a lot of money, but for those, mostly that family. But because it does have that value of being very personalized, I guess it's worth more. So it just hangs down a little in the front to cover the vital parts. This is an old man's thew. This is about 2 yards long. The newer ones are 4 yards long, and they hang down. They cover much more than these old ones.
This is from Yap?
That's from Yap. Then it got to be 2020, and they came back to me and asked me to do it again. Only this time, the countries were all beginning to use um, tablets instead of the other things they used before. So with a tablet, a lot changed. When I moved from the 2000 to the 2010, my editing was about the same, because whether you key it in and then write an edit, or you scan it in and then write an edit, you have no control over the enumeration. But if somebody is keying on a tablet, the tablet can tell you, oh, you just keyed in a 70-year-old woman with a 3-year-old child. Did you really mean that? And so you can correct it immediately with the respondent. They're famous for their storyboards. You already did one of them. So I was in Palau for several months, and so they gave me this. So it's a special one just for me. So it was the Micronesian census in 1995, and you can see it's not quite as impressive as this one, but still it's carved so that it's three-dimensional, basically. Does it have the here? This one's, they're holding a baby. I mean, what they really like to do is that one that I was describing before with the cesarean section. That's their. You see that very often. They really have a thing about that. You still have to do the other edit, because there'll be people who refuse to give you their age, and you have to use an edit to get that. Or even you can't think of everything that people will do or the enumerators will do. So you still need the full edit. And so I wrote the book. It was about twice as long, because you have to take into account all the crazy things that people were going to do during the enumeration. And then we had the 2020 handbook.
How many pages was it?
I think it's around 250 something, over 200. This one is also from Palau, but it's kind of hidden. But I think it's got the same thing. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. They have this very popular. They seem to like that one. Okay. I've been in two air accidents in the Continental Airlines called incidents. I mean, one time I was waiting to go from Yak to Palau, and when the plane landed, it crashed. The pilot landed about 3 feet before the runway started, and it's sheared off the landing gears, and the plane went into the jungle. And yeah, they canceled that flight. This is a Chuukese man, and it's quite representative. These things, they used to put stuff in that made their earlobes drop. And you'll still see old men, and sometimes old women with it, but this is quite what you would expect to see in a Chuukese carving. In American Samoa, my very first census in 1974, I went out to Manua, where Margaret Mead studied, and I they had 2 ships a week, so on Wednesday and Thursday. I have no idea why they picked Wednesday and Thursday, but that's what they did. So I was going out on Wednesday and going to come back on Thursday. I did go out on Wednesday, and the Thursday ship never came. And it didn't come for a whole week. So I was stuck with just my overnight clothes and so forth for a week. I read just about every book in the elementary school library, because that's about all I could read, and that's all they had. And those books were not particularly exciting. Like I said, about 22 countries, I think. I visited a few others.
In Africa?
In Africa. Mostly in English-speaking Africa, but also have done in 3 or 4 French African countries also. And also actually Angola and Mozambique, which are Portuguese-speaking Africa. And I do bring back artifacts, but I don't know. I'd have to look around a little bit to find some. And then when I went to Woolly-Eye to train enumerators, a similar thing, in 1994, I went out to Woolly-Eye flew out, and it was the same thing. That we're going to fly us out on Wednesday and then come on Thursday to pick me up and take me back. I flew out on Wednesday and I trained the enumerators, and then Wednesday night it rained. Well, the problem was that they put the runway, is that what it's called? Yeah, the runway, in the taro patch, because that was the only place. The islands are small, so the runway went down and then came back up. And when it rained, it got, because it was right in the middle of the runway, they couldn't land. And they couldn't land for several days. And then by Saturday, they said they were going to come on Sunday, but Saturday night it rained. So I was there for more than a week. But that time, I had all the enumerators and I had the questionnaires. So we went house to house collecting the data. In 2017, I was sent to 3 African countries: Lesotho, Benin, and Togo, and the people in Minnesota just sent me for 1 week each. That's the fastest edit I've ever had to do in my life, and it took me about a month to get over it. But that was what I thought was the last. And then this last year, Tanzania insisted that I come because I had worked on the last 2 censuses in 2002 and 2012. They wanted me to work on the 2022 census, so I went back. I can't think offhand what I brought as a souvenir. I have to look at it. This is a Samoan. It's for sakau if it's in Micronesia, or Cava if it's in Polynesia. And so they have this root that they mix with water. I mean, they squeeze the root and then mix it with water, and then they drink it. It's slightly narcotic, and it tastes like mud. I mean, I don't eat a lot of mud. I drink a lot of mud, but if I did, that's what it would taste like.
Did you try it?
Oh, I've done it several times. It numbs the lips.
When did you initially come to Hawaii?
1972. Originally, I came with a professor who was working at the Bishop Museum, in fact, Marshallese, and I was coding Hawaiian land tenure because there was a period in the 1800s when suddenly women started inheriting land and lower level males, and so they called that the Great Mahele. This is a funeral lava lava. I mean, you can see how intricate it is and how long it's going to take to make this. Normally, they're like this, where you have something at the bottom and something at the top, but not the whole thing. Of course, this is in a way the whole thing, but it's mainly it would be this color for most of it, and you would only have something at the bottom and something at the top. But for the funeral one, they make it quite elegantly. They cover the body, and traditionally they would take it out to sea and put it in the water with that on top. Now they're buried.
What island was this?
Well, all the outer islands of Yap have this the same way. And then I went to the Census Bureau, because in the 1970 census they had enumerated islands that should have had a lot of people as empty, and those that were supposed to be uninhabited, they got full of people because their coding was wrong. So, I mean, I knew, I was telling them which islands were off, and they said, okay, they wanted to hire me. They wanted to hire me for 2 years. But I was on contracts here year after year, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. If you want me to stay, make me an offer so that it'll be more than 2 years. And so they did. They created a position, Pacific Islands expert at the Census Bureau. And then I stayed for 29 years or so. But now they make these elaborate ones that, I mean, like, this is obviously a ray, stingray. So they're kind of neat. I mean, you saw this one, this is a turtle, obviously. And so you can get different designs that's kind of new. Didn't you see that? And there's another new thing they do. They'll put, this of course is coconut that's been painted on. And they didn't used to do that, but now they'll incorporate that into the...
What country is this?
Well, they're mostly from Pohnpei.
Okay.
It's the first Micronesian exhibition on Guam, and they had a lot of handicrafts and stuff. And this comes from Palau, and it was it won first prize, and they wanted $800 for it, and nobody bought it. So I had extra per diem, so I said, if you'll sell it to me for $700 and get it to me somehow, because it's heavy, that I'll buy it, which I did. Just so if somebody wants to know, there are 3 stories here. One of them, she's about to have a cesarean section. And this, I think, is daily life. It's been a long time since I did it. And I think the other one, when it got very, very dry, the food started coming out of the trees from the bark, from the actual trees. Yeah, I think this is daily life. So that's it. I've had it for many, many years, since the 1980s. And it's traveled a lot. It's gone to Harvard and didn't get well educated, but that's it. There's one island, during the nuclear bombing, the people were moved to another island. From Anahuituk, then they went to, I think it's Rangalap. But then that didn't work because there wasn't enough food. So they went to Kili, which is a higher island. So the places I normally go are atolls where the volcano has gone down, so all you have is the rim. But there are some islands where it hasn't gone all the way under the water, so it forms kind of a dome. And Kili was one of them. The problem with that is you can't just push off your canoe into the water easily because it's not formed very well for that. And so they had a hard time fishing and so forth. But the women started making these Kili baskets, which look something like this, only it's more dense, what they do. And I have one somewhere, but they're sold at some, I don't know whether it's Macy's or some place in New York, ordered like 500 of them. And they couldn't do that because there aren't that many women making the baskets. They couldn't supply that many, so you usually can only get them if you go to the Marshalls. And this other one is that's from Ghana. That was at the very end of the census. They took me out for a while, and that actually, somebody walked up to me in a parking lot and said, do you want to buy this? And it was like $5. I couldn't resist it. So, pretty sure it's 1984. So I taught a course in demography in the anthropology department. And this is a tourist item, but I liked it, so I picked it up.
In Alaska.
In Alaska. That one on the end it's expensive, but it's interesting because they're pounding, preparing the Cava. So they pound the root out and then they mix it with the water. There's a couple of those. I didn't realize I already had one, and I bought a second one. The Ark is from Malawi, and it came with paired animals, elephants and rhinoceros and hippopotamus and so forth. The next one, you wouldn't believe, but that's from the Yanomamo Indians in South America. I had a professor who studied them, and then I did computer work for him, and he gave me a few things from the Yanomamo. Among them were these bows, and I put the bows in our house in Houston, and Mom gave them away to a museum there. So that was the end of the bows. Yeah, and then the last one happens to be a turtle, and that could be from anywhere. I don't know where that thing is from. This is from Indonesia. It's a tourist item. Somebody just did it for the tourist trade. This actually has the person who made it. They signed it on the back. You can see that it's these are from Bali. The money, the Yapese money. This could be Europic. I mean, the structure is very similar. Huh? Where'd you get that? It was up there on top. Oh, God, I didn't remember that one. They're both African. This one I got. This is from Uganda. I'm gonna guess this is also Ugandan. It's got a map of Africa up here. I think it's Australia. I don't know. Okay, this one is from Tokelau. It's the only thing I have from Tokelau. Tokelau is 3 atolls. There are 4 atolls really, but one of the atolls American Samoa stole, and so that one is not part of Tokelau. But Tokelau is 3 very small islands. There are only 1,500 people in the whole country, and I don't know. I bought this in American Samoa. I didn't go to Tokelau. But I liked it. It's for fishing tackle and stuff. This is Palauan. See, it's cracked too. This is interesting because they're transporting the Yapese money. They used to put them in these boats, and it used to be these small ones, which were difficult to move because they went by canoe. Then this guy came. I have to look it up. I can't remember his name, but he was a white guy who came. He married a Yapese, and then he had a ship, and the ship would go down to Palau to get the money, and they got big money, which you would not have been able to do on a canoe, so those are, even though they're much bigger, they're worth much less than these, where they had to go to a lot of work to get it and get it there. And so I liked it. Oh, there's quite a few of them. And this is a very traditional basket. We used to have them, I guess. Oh, there's one there on the. This isn't a. I mean, I guess some young person might have that. Some kid.
It's like a purse.
Yeah, but also a big one is a baby basket. I mean, so they'll carry the baby in that as they walk around. Okay, this is interesting. This is a coconut grater. So you sit on here and you grate the coconut like this. You need to have a coconut though to do it. Otherwise it just looks like I'm doing something. This is a Marshallese stick tart, and they use this for navigation between the islands of the Marshalls. This is the idea that they had. They don't do this anymore because they have GPS, so they don't need to worry with this stuff. And they used to fight each other, and this was something, I mean, it was a club. If they got close to somebody, they would club them. With the fire, a lot of stuff was moved around, and it hasn't all shown up again yet. I don't think they threw that out. Most, but not all, of the wooden things survived. But if there was any cloth in it, like we had canoes, they threw out all the canoes. But maybe it's just as well, because then you would have wanted to take pictures of all those things too.
What were you doing in Malawi?
Census. Malawi was one of my first censuses, actually. I went there in, I think, 2000. The census was in 1998. I also worked on the 2008 census, but I didn't work on the 2018 census. Somebody else worked on that.
Reporting Micronesians, what you do for them?
Well, originally, when I left Europe, the island where I did my fieldwork.
What year was that?
That was 1973. So they kept asking for things. They asked for a phonograph and records. Well, the climate is no good for that. And they were asking for things. I was trying to accommodate to a certain extent, but you can only do so much. And finally somebody asked to be sponsored at this high school. It's on Juk, and it's high-level Catholics private school. So I decided that was a good way of paying them back. So I started that. And then one of them asked to come to wherever I was, which was in Virginia, so to go to school there for their bachelor's degree. And after that, that was in 1984, and I've been sponsoring ever since. I've sponsored about 30 guys over the last 50 years.
This is Dr. Philip Levin of Doctor's Dreams. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.